This is the Simpit. I'm your host, Shaun Cole, but the real star of today's show is GT Sport. GT Sport is the latest version of Gran Turismo by Polyphony, and it's the first one we've seen in, 4 years since Gran Turismo 6. Gran Turismo is, hands down, the highest selling driving game in the history of the world. They've sold over 60 million copies, and it's only been available to PlayStation systems, so they've never made the leap to the Xbox. Obviously, they're a total competitor, and they've never made a PC version. So this is PlayStation sales only, and you're talking over 60 million copies, and that means that it is responsible for more racers, more sim racers, more racing gamers than any other title, period. It is, you could call it the Madden of racing games. It also means it's the most important sim in a lot of ways, because it is the one that comes with the highest expectations from the world, and it's the one that moms are buying their kids and turning them into sim racers. So today is my first live review of a product. I've never done a full review. I've done previews. I've let you guys in with my streams and let you see the game, let you see how I approach the review. But I've never done a review, and I'm a little bit nervous about today's show, just to be brutally honest with you guys. And the main reason is my reviews have always been very detailed, very to the point, try to get through as many facts and tell you everything you need to know in the shortest amount of time, and that still ends up being 20, 30, 40 minutes long. To do it live, I'm just going to unhandcuff myself. I prepared some thoughts. I've prepared some videos to accompany a lot of those thoughts, but it's not going to be that same exactness. Like I used to say 5mm bolt, and you'd see a 5mm bolt. I can't guarantee that kind of coverage today, but I think it's going to be different. It's going to be a way for you guys to also have an opinion in how it goes, and at the end, I'm going to open it up to your thoughts. I want to know where you agree with me. I want to know where you disagree with me, and I want to know where you think GT Sport is really what they've done, how they've accomplished the goal that they set out to do. So, just like a review, I'm going to kind of go through things in a similar order to my reviews, and I will just kind of play some videos that go along with some of my thoughts. So, first things first, if you haven't already seen, because it did come out quite a while ago now, let's just talk a little bit about the general layout of the game. You get in, the layout is simple, but it's elegant in that manner that you'd expect from GT Sport and Polyphony. And they have a bunch of things. You have the General Settings tab, the Arcade Racing tab, Campaign Mode, Sport Mode, Brand Central, the Lobby, and then you also have the Scapes, where you can actually pick various different places to put your car. The GT main logos, where you're going to find stats, options for the game, tips and tools. And in arcade mode is we're going to be able to do all the different types of racing against the AI. You have time trial, single race, custom race, all sorts of variations in there. Then, when you move into the Sport tab, is when you actually get into the actual racing. And this is a new feature, really, and it's the licensed racing, the ranked racing, places where you're going to run against much, much higher level competition, and hopefully get it more like iRacing, where you're going to actually do some of that real, authentic racing. And that's what they tried to add to this game, and we're going to come to that point many a time. You also have the career mode, where you have all those gold medal challenges, whether it's a time trial, get to a certain point to point, all of that kind of stuff. But for me, those draw me in. When I get a bronze, I'm upset. When I get a silver, I'm upset. When I get a gold, I feel victorious. And then you have your friends list on top of that, and that allows you to see where you rank against them. So even if you get a gold, but you're 15th on your friends list, that's a little frustrating. So that gives you the main layout of the land. On the left-hand side, and we don't see it here in the video that I have going, there you have it. There's the little house. And when it goes downward, it's where you can find your stats. And the stats are actually very important, because that's where your ranking is. And when you go online and do those ranked competitions, which is so much better than just the general lobby layout, where it's just that same matchmaking that you've always done in Gran Turismo. We're looking at the Scapes mode right here, where you can just pick one of your cars, put it in a scenic location, take advantage of your photographic skills. So there is a lot to go through. The layouts are simple. They're easy. Here's where you can change your liveries. It's really endless what you can do when it comes to just navigating through the menus. And it is fun. Here we're using some of our mileage points to buy some bonuses that you're only going to be able to get from driving. There are a lot of things that are very entertaining and keep you going in the sim. And that's just the layout itself. Now let's get to my favorite things about Gran Turismo. And there are a few things that I think it really stands out when we talk about Sim Pizza. I think there are a few categories that Gran Turismo could be a contender in a handful of those topics. So let's start off with graphics. For me, there's just no denying that the graphics in this sport are some of the best in all of sim racing. They're vibrant, they have a great color palette that looks very realistic, and they have many layers and depth to them with shadows and things like that. The cockpits in the car are extremely realistic. That includes, like, your hands on the wheel look extremely realistic. And when you're watching the replays, I mean, quite honestly, this right here, it looks like a commercial on TV. I mean, this could have been a Chevrolet commercial showing you with great world environmental, lighting. My frame rates have been steady, even though we're talking 60 frames per second, which is fine for console racing, but slow for maximum sim racing. I mentioned it already, but the lighting, the shading, the way the cars actually look like they're on the track to me is very important when it comes to the graphics. You've got solar flares, it changes the way the track will look depending on the time of day. You have additional things like waving flags, wind obviously, corner workers, great smoke from the tires and dirt. There's a lot to the graphics, and it is absolutely one of the reasons why I love Gran Turismo. Next up for me is career mode. And honestly, career mode is something that surprised me. At first I thought it was light on content. At first I thought it wasn't that deep, that they had gone so far in the multiplayer direction that this wasn't going to be there. But it was there, and it was there in that beginner phase of just learning some braking, some acceleration, some slaloming. Again, you're getting those bronze, silver, gold medal challenges all the way through these. You're getting points. The mileage points are how you buy upgrades that you can't get without driving. You get experience points. You get money so you can buy more cars. All that stuff, to me, is really important. And when I'm comparing different games or sims, to me, having a career mode is really important. And I want good games, and I want good career modes. And when I'm wanting that, I'm generally sacrificing other sides of the spectrum in order to accommodate getting that. They are detailed, they are long. You got that rivals list that just makes it even more compelling to continue on in it. And it was absolutely another one of my favorite things about GT Sport. Next up, I covered it already a little bit, but the user interface. User interface in GT Sport, it's a pleasure to work with. The overall layout, it's simple, it's easy to navigate, it's elegant, it's beautiful if you don't like the word elegant. When it comes to setting up a race, single player, whatever, it's simple, it's quick. The loading is a little slow, but I mean, it's just fun to go through the dealerships and look at cars. Taking advantage of the bonuses are fun. Buying things is fun, and it was all part of the user interface as well. What made it fun was being able to get around and utilize the game. It doesn't leave you searching that hard for things compared to a lot of other games or sims that you might think about. Next up for me is fun factor. Another great feature. I already talked about it with the career mode. I mean, the career mode sucked me in. Winning the medals is satisfying. I felt victorious when doing it. Winning bonus cars in the game is always fun. So here's the scene when you do accomplish certain things, you'll win a car. That's fun. Spending my mileage points on special paint, things like that. It's only on the PS4. So there are, the pre-planned races, that new, mode where you can actually get in a competition, do a proper qualifying, run against ranked drivers. I think it has great potential. Like, when I tried it at first, it was just so-so, because the ranking system hadn't been developed. But given time, when you have a bigger difference in scores, I think it could be a lot of fun doing these races, and something very unique, and something that they made sacrifices bringing that level of competition into GT Sport, and they let some other stuff slide, which when I talk about things that I don't love about the game, we'll see some of those there. Next up is replay, and this goes hand in hand with the graphics. The replays are just amazing. I would watch race after race, and I had as much fun watching some of my replays as I did driving in the events. The car modeling is incredible. All the things that come down to the graphics as well. But the way it looks so real. And this is just where it blows doors on 9 out of 10 other sims. Not every sim, but the replays were simplified. You didn't have a lot of camera angles. You just had one TV camera and some onboard angles. Nothing that I thought was, you know, over-the-top great compared to like a PC sim, but when you look at them, you had to get a smile on your face, regardless of what it was. One of my absolute favorite parts. Another thing, and you guys saw it firsthand, and that was the broadcastability built into this. The ability to go live, create a YouTube channel or some other various ways of streaming, get a picture-in-picture, and actually share it with your friends. Create your own online persona. Show people how good or bad you are at the game or sim. And this is something to me that is new. It's something that I think we're going to see more and more of built into sims, and a big part of our future in gaming, sim racing, and even just general life at times. I had a lot of fun streaming them live. Honestly, I'd prefer to be able to port it into my PC and then stream it from the PC using the normal OBS type software that I use. But just the fact that it was built in and simple was quite awesome. Sorry about that. I was getting a little dry running consecutive time like that. Next up, plug and play. Not going to dwell on this, but this gets back to that user interface being easy to use, PS4 being easy to use. Put a compatible wheel into the sim. 9 out of 10 of them are going to be pre-mapped. You're not going to have to think about it, and you are up and running. Does it allow extra things? No, not so much. It's not a PC. It's still the PS4. But it is something that makes it very nice. When I think about starters, when I think about beginners to sim racing, it's important that they don't have to learn every trick in the trade to be good. You get in, you plug it in, and you drive. And that is awesome. Next up is extras. And this is something, they go the extra mile. You leave the console sitting and it goes into screensaver mode. You have pretty cool loading screens on some of the events. Mileage bonuses, flashy things, celebratory sounds, winning cars, you know, being able to take pictures, a detailed dealership area that doesn't just show you cars but tells you about cars. Just the whole detail, the attention to detail they spent every corner of this game. So polished, and when you look at 4 years between versions of it, it's very obvious. There are significant things that they do, that little things that not everybody thinks of and does, and I think they are the leaders when it comes to some of this stuff. And for me, it's those little extras. You know, the channel, being able to go through the museum on certain makes, having the Vision Gran Turismo content. I mean, on one hand, this is light on content, we're going to get to that, but on the other hand, the whole idea of being futuristic in a realistic today's sim. So I applaud them on going the extra mile, we'll call that. And last thing that I really think they truly just excel in is car modeling. And this goes back to replays a little bit. It goes back to graphics. But when you look at the cars, again, showroom quality. They, on the track, in the dealerships, wherever you look at them in this game, they are works of art. And it doesn't matter what level of car you look at, they are all gorgeous. And they all respond well to the lighting in the game, the shadows in the game. Actually, we see one little thing here. Oh, it almost went away. A little bit of interesting shadows at times on the cars. But other than that, some of the best modeling you're going to see. You have moving parts on cars like the McLaren or the Bugatti. and, you know, flickering lights based on what they're doing, and just, yeah, the cars are incredible. Every car in the game is gorgeous, and they do justice to all of the makes, that's for sure. So that takes me to the end of things that I really loved about Gran Turismo Sport, and that doesn't mean that what I'm about to say takes away from my overall enjoyment, because overall I really loved the game, or sim, whatever you want to call it. We'll get back to that in the end. But let's talk about where it falls short to me. Number 1, sounds. Hopefully I don't blow your ears out. I think I left the volume a little higher on this one. They're okay. Yeah, they're unique for each car, but they have a digitized sound about them. There's a hollow, echoey sound to them that I just kind of don't like. The tires sound, the squealings were a little annoying. They're time-well to the game, and I mean, they're essential to judging grip, sure, but I wasn't impressed with the overall sounds of GT Sport, and it's too bad. It would have really rounded things out for me quite a bit. Next up, things I'm not thrilled about. Limited content. There's no denying. They talked about limiting the content and really expanding the racing side for this version of the game. And no, I don't need 50 versions of a Mazda RX-7, but at the same time, I would like to see a much larger variety of cars and even a diversity of certain makes when you could depend on a handful of evolution of certain cars. And there's a huge change. I mean, we're talking like 180 plus cars, broken in a handful of types, you know, like 5 or 6 groupings. Not really the best selection when you think of Gran Turismo. A great selection of cars, don't get me wrong, there are a lot. Same thing with locations. I believe there are 19 locations, 27 variations, with a good portion of them just being running the backward version of the same track. And when I think of a game that's trying to go more towards the racing side of things and less towards the arcade, well, I need more real-world tracks to really think of you as a sim, to even use or throw around the word sim. And there's only a handful of them in there. I do like running them backward, but I need more locations, more real locations. I love fantasy locations, but to be a real sim, give me more racing. Give me more places to race. Next up, limited racing. As much as the content is limited, I feel like the racing is a little limited as well. Yes, they have those online events, and those are awesome. You have the lobby racing, the traditional online racing, and you have your arcade mode, and you have your career mode. But I really thought they were going to really blow it wide open, and when I think of what they did do with that new mode, the sport mode, I'd like to see that twice as detailed and twice as big. And I think they have a big enough community to really get a lot of events going. And maybe that's in the future. So maybe this is one of those things that we're going to talk about now. But in the future, who knows what's in store for it. But I would definitely like to see more racing out of what was supposed to be the more racing variation of the sim. Next up, damage. And this is something I'm not going to let them off the hook for. The damage is just pathetic. I mean, you smash a car and it comes away a little bit scratched. I understand in the lobby mode of online racing you can turn on damage, but even there it's limited. But the career mode was so fun, and I did give them credit for that. I wanted damage to be more significant. I wanted damage to be more significant in everything I was doing. And for me, this is a big letdown in the game. And when you can just completely stack the car and just see nothing but a scratch, it takes away from those graphics. It takes away from so many things that I want to give them credit for, and I can't. And it would have been relatively easy. So anyway, that's it on damage. Next up, rally cars. Okay, they actually did a great job of rally cars. It's actually a pretty decent job. Compared to Forza, where I'm driving trophy trucks and street courses and no jumps, it was a lot more appropriate. But when I look at the limited content, limited racing, I didn't need the addition of rally car. You know what? Build a GT rally, and I will play it all the time. But you could have given me a handful more real-life cars. You could give me a handful more real-life tracks and skip the rally car, and I would have been more than happy. They're gorgeous, don't get me wrong, and the driving was very fun, don't get me wrong. And I know... and I know that a lot of the new games are incorporating rally, but it's because there was such a huge hit in content that I just didn't like some of it being displaced with this, even though it was very good. Don't get me wrong, I want them to make a rally car game now. And then the last thing that really bothered me about Gran Turismo, we'll talk about the things I'm new to. Oh wow, this video came out. So let's do that first. Sorry about that, you guys. Thought I had it all ready to go. The AI. I don't have footage that even justifies how much I despise the AI. They are so simple. You just push them out of your way. You rear end them and they kind of check up on the brakes and swing out of the way. Muscle them out of your way anytime you want. They run in a line. They don't really race against each other very much, if at all. The career mode was one of my favorite things in the game, even though they wanted it to be the online play. And the AI were constantly a letdown while doing it. So that's something that I would like to see them improve, and it's something it's an area they haven't improved over the generations of the sim much. So again, when I race clean, and there's a way to race clean. I mean, I did the guardrail around a track the other day just for the fun of it, and there was no penalty for doing so. The damage didn't hurt me. It actually prevented me from having to hit the brakes. You can use them as moving chicanes. When you race properly and like have to get a good run to get around them, it feels a lot better. But if you want to just be a dick about it, excuse my language, you can just nudge them out of your way anytime you want. So those are my overall thoughts on the game. The things that or at least those aren't quite my overall thoughts. Those are the things that really struck me, the good and the not so good, so to speak. And if we were to move into our more formal review and talk about the bottom line, you know, I'm going to tell you, I had a lot of fun with GT Sport. When I first fired it up, I thought it was light on content, and in the end, the career mode offered me more fun in hours than I expected, and that I've even done, and I'm going to continue doing it because it's been fun, and a lot of you guys are on my leaderboard. So that is something that I'm going to continue to do for sure. It was a lot of fun, and it was great. The physics, I'm kind of medium on the physics. I mean, they were simplified. They were easy to tame. They had a natural feeling in the wheel, and I could immediately start pushing the boundaries of the car. But again, they were simplified. Like, not as many things were being counted or figured or computed in the driving side of the car. And that was very obvious when comparing it to the top sims. I'm not going to name names right now. I'm not going to say that it felt like an arcade game, but I still feel like they were far off compared to those top sims in terms of physics. Now, when I start comparing it on the arcade side, yes, I did hit a guardrail and just go on without damage. And I'm thinking, I hit that thing so hard, it should have been the end of my race. It did slow me down. I mean, I didn't get an advantage by taking the guardrail around, but I did not take on any damage, and it saved me from just completely not knowing a corner or not respecting it. I think with the big competitions and the more tight, yes, it is Simcade to me. With the competitions, the ranked type driving, the proper qualifying, knowing the event, you know, even if it's 20 minutes in advance, it was a step in the right direction, but I still think they missed it just a little bit and didn't do enough of it. And that takes me to not enough. Just not enough. Not enough cars, not enough tracks, not enough real-life tracks. It's all a step in the right direction, but not enough. And that's something that I'd always depended on GT Sport or Gran Turismo for, was massive content. Being able to drive a Daihatsu nothing all the way up to a Bugatti Veyron. And they just kind of skipped a whole bunch. And that to me gets back to just not being enough, not enough. Their driving school was, it's one of the best in the business. If you've never driven a sim in your life, you're 8 and your mom bought you that and you're going through those initial challenges, it's going to teach you what you need to know about driving. And I give them massive credit for that. And they're going to suck those kids in and make them play. And then even when their parents are watching them play, it's beautiful. They're going to just like watch it and not be as unenthusiastic about gaming compared to like if their kid's playing a shooter and mom's like, I can't believe I let him do this, versus mom and dad are going to watch this and think this is a beautiful thing. I love that as well. Like I said, I'm going to continue with my career mode. It's been fun. I'll probably do some online racing in the bigger competitions if they like bring it to another level, and then I'll be low ranked and have some work to do. But overall, I loved it. Overall, it's a great game. Yes, fans of the franchise might be let down slightly. Yes, guys who want to think of it as a sim are either going to defend it or be let down slightly. But overall, it's worth the money. I mean, the career mode alone, for me, was worth the money. End of story right there. The graphics alone add on to that, and all the things that I talked about, you know, the career mode graphics, user interface, fun factor, replays, all of that stuff is just so well done. Some of the best in the entire industry. So that pretty much is my total thought and opinion on it. I drove it with the Fnatic CSL Elite with their updated patch. I drove it with the Thrustmaster TGT. Yes, it operated the vibration motors. It's an enhancement, not something you have to have, just an enhancement. Beyond that, I mean, it was a solid sim. So, before I bring this to a close, I do want to give you guys an opportunity to agree or disagree, hopefully. Well, not hopefully, but please chime in if you do. Your thoughts on any of the things I covered. I know some of you talked while I was going, but I was going, so I wasn't really paying attention. But I really do want to know your guys' thoughts on Gran Turismo if you've played it. And yeah, I agree. I don't think they're trying to be a full-on sim, but they do talk about themselves in a way that makes you think. They think it a little bit. And I know a lot of people who are just giant lovers of Gran Turismo are going to tell me how wrong I am and that it's far better than I said. But that wasn't an area that I thought it leads the industry by any means. It was good driving experience, good force feedback. The physics are there. The setups, you know, the setups, you can do a bit to the car. But for me, it was the career mode and the fun factor. Yeah, the fun factor for me is a great thing. And it is a great starter game. And I agree, you should use this as part of the ladder system, moving up. But to be perfectly fair, you think of the GT Academy and the cutthroat online competition people went through on GT6 in order to hot lap their way into a race and become a GT Academy finalist. All of the drivers who went through that program turned into incredible race car drivers. Every single one of them. But they all came from Gran Turismo, not from iRacing, not from Assetto Corsa, not from R-Factor, AMS, or Project Cars, from Gran Turismo. Victor, and I think that is a little bit of a yin-yang right there. The AI, but see, for me, the career mode was far more compelling than the online mode, but in all fairness, I'm coming from more of a PC background where onlining is where we excel in PC sim racing. Maddie, that is a great question, and I was about to say yes, but that's not fair. Forza came in, and then a bunch of other things came in, and I moved along. And what I need to do, in all fairness, is go back to Forza 7, because a lot of the things I felt about this, I felt similarly with, a few things differently. I mean, I think the graphics here are better than Forza. They feel and look more realistic to me. Um, yeah, you do. Okay, so that's a great point, Watson. So you can run in that sport mode. Let me bring up the user interface and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So you can run in the sport mode with these challenges. It'll take a while for the video to get there. I'll just let it run. But to do just the normal lobby racing like you've been accustomed to, where you're just matchmaking on somebody's hosted internet connection, this stuff you can all do without a PlayStation account. But the lobby, where you just do that generic racing, you do need to have a PlayStation Plus membership. And that is a bummer, I agree. I missed all that spatial. If you love having fun, if you want to race online with fixed cars, it also has great game. Yes, I agree. Not a whole lot of diversity to it, though. And sometimes when I was in grids, I'm like, wow, this is an interesting grid of cars. Not as weird as Forza in that way. Todd, I will do that. I will look into doing that when I return from vacation. Workcation. Yeah, I'm going to admit, Victor, I did not do it. I know what the online lobby racing's all about. I got my fun out of the sport mode, and I think that's where they excel better. This sport mode, to me, is a much better environment for online racing. And Spatial, did I miss something else, or is that what you were talking about? I want to make sure I get what you were talking about as well. So, any other thoughts from you guys? You know, do you think I hit the mark? Do you think that, you know, were the graphics amazing? You know, was the career mode really pulling you in and giving you massive fun factor? User interface, did you guys find it easy to navigate through? I don't even need to ask about replays. I just thought those were the best ever, even with one camera. I wish we had a little more camera control, but I don't need it. The broadcastability, pluggability, the extras. I mean, just that extras is something no one else does the same on. Just the fact that it goes into a screen. I mean, it's not a big deal. It's just that extra level of polish. FIA sections. I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, so you agree with me on the sounds as well. I agree. And the limited content. The damage in 2017. Come on. When I think of things that are important in a racing anything, sim, game, whatever, damage is a big part of... People watch racing for the crashes. So how can you have crashes without damage? To me, that's just not... Okay, I'll have to look into that. More layers of detail with it. I'm sorry I missed that. But, in general, I like that area. I mean, and that's something that they did do a much better job compared to previous versions of Gran Turismo. And to an extent, just for consoles in general, you know, it's a great thing. That I don't know, Jason. I only tried my method. So, yeah, Todd, I like the whole qualifying in that sport mode, and qualifying and being able to like dial in your setup and, you know, work the conditions to the maximum and prepare for the race is huge, and something that I think that they did a great job of, and something that was an improvement. And just with some small changes, and quite honestly, some DLC could totally take care of that. And maybe that's what's in store. You know, DLC, a car pack, a track pack, could change this sim in just 1 or 2 phases and add to it. If they really pumped up that GT Sport mode, you don't even need that PS, you know, extra account. It's exceptional, and these are totally steps in the right direction. So that really does about do it for my thoughts. I'm right about at the time that I'd like to be. We're at 35 minutes for my review, which means we're not too far off of how long this would have been with a full edited review, but you guys were along for the ride with me. I'm not going to ask you right now your thoughts on it, but if you have thoughts of this format versus live, and if you know my stuff, you know how I've always done it for 10 years. This is totally new, a first time ever. I'm considering, can I do something like that with the TGT? You can't see it very well sitting here like that, so I might have to change that, but I had fun doing it this way. It allowed me to be a lot more honest and just talk about it than super scripted. I know everything wasn't timed perfectly. We didn't show that 5mm bolt right when we were talking about 5mm bolt, but it also allowed you guys to have thoughts and opinions. And you know, thank you, Spatial, for pointing that out. So anybody who and Samson just mentioned it, going into the FIA season. So that's something I might have to do an addendum to this review. I somehow missed that, and I'm going to be the first one to admit it. And that's another great thing about doing a live review. So that way, if I ever miss anything, you guys have my back, or bring up points. And again, if you think I'm wrong on something, I want to hear about that as much as if I'm doing it right. But thank you for that. Let's all go check out that FIA season and see how much that expands the sport mode of the game. And that could change a little of my thoughts on the more. But a lot of it was more content and more in general. So, but it would be more in terms of the direction that they were aiming to go. So even more mission accomplished by them. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this format. Please email me at Shaun, SHAUN, @thesimpit.com with any questions, comments, corrections, or things you'd like to see on the show. This is The Simpit. I'm Shaun Cole, and I'll see you on the track.